Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's Friday morning. If you are procrastinating working today, I am glad you joined us. Or if you're not working, or if you're doing something else, thank you for joining us for the live interview I have today with my special guest, Molly Crease, MBA. So excited for this conversation. Molly and I, ironically, met on LinkedIn through some networking. And I'm so thrilled to have her on with this topic around the great resignation and so many people looking to change up their life and change up what they're doing, maybe trying to connect with new people for new experiences. So Molly Crease is the CEO and founder of We Network Services. She's a professional career coach, a networking expert, podcaster, public speaker, and mentor. I'd love you to join me in welcoming Molly. Hi, Molly.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here, Caroline. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good, thanks. I love that social media, people bash it a lot for very valid reasons, but I don't even know where you live, but I think you're in the US. And like, how would we ever have met other than social media, where I think one of us commented on something and I liked what you had to say and we connected and here we are having a great conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so awesome. I know we've kind of transitioned so much into the virtual space and networking virtually and talking to people on our social media platforms. And I think it's amazing because you get to meet so many people, different backgrounds, diverse people. It's amazing.
I agree. And the diversity is so instrumental for our creativity, which is, as you know, one of the things that I love to talk about. So
Yeah.
I always like to ask my guests, Molly, because I saw that in your history, you've had a lot of finance and accounting positions, and that's kind of been the focus of your professional career up until We Network. What did you want to be when you were a kid? Like, what did you think you were going to do when you grew up?
So I, like every other kid, I had a number of things. Every week there would be a different thing you wanted to be, whether it a veterinarian or a lawyer or whatever. But coming from a Caribbean background, anyone who's from the Caribbean would know that Caribbean families, we always talk about the main professional titles like the doctor, the lawyer, and stuff like that. But I remember one time I was watching TV with my parents and I was listening to news because I would love to listen to news. And I would look at the stock market and I would look at the trading floor where they would be shouting out the trades and all of that stuff. And I'm like, that's interesting. If I ever get to go to the US, I'm going to want to explore that. And so I think that's why I got into the business and the finance field and stuff like that. I even remember interviewing for a trading job, but I didn't get it. But I think that's what piqued my interest for finance and for the business world because it looked so exciting on TV when you see the NASDAQ trade and they putting up the numbers and all that stuff. And I was like, that seems interesting.
Yeah, like the fast pace, like lots of things
Yeah,
going on.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of things going on.
I love that. And do you consider yourself looking back, like would you say people would have called you creative as a child?
I would think so. I was very creative along with me and my sisters. I have four sisters and two brothers.
Wow.
And we grew up, our background is growing up in the church. So we did a lot of singing, we did a lot of acting, sketches, and stuff like that. We did dancing in a group. Not only that, but also our parents really, when they give us toys, they made sure that it was creative stuff. And even if we didn't have toys, we would kind of make our own stuff to play with. I remember us putting together a sheet of paper and making a airplane out of that sheet of paper. And even with style too, I remember us folding up that paper to put it in your hair and then take it out, and then you see the paper curl your hair. So I I think I was very, very creative as a child. Yeah,
I love that. Sounds like your parents nurtured that in you and put you in an environment of creativity.
definitely.
Yeah. So, how do you think your creative? Because one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on the show is because I bring people on who, from the outside, have seemingly non-creative type of roles, and we'll get to your networking and career coaching later because I think that's probably a bit more creative. But how did your creativity change through like a non-creative job, like in finance and accounting?
So some people would say finance and accounting can be monotonous because you're doing the same thing over and over. I think the creativity in that would be finding different ways or different outlets to get the job done and get it effectively. So when you hear companies talk about they wanting a candidate with critical thinking, I think creative thinking is just as essential as well because someone might know one way to do this, and then you might come up with a creative way, even to get it done even quicker and faster, and even probably more productive. So that creativity is definitely important. I didn't have it so much when I was in the finance and accounting arena. I would say probably in the sense of taking the initiative and trying to get things done properly, but definitely honing in that, trying to get that space where you can shine that creativity. Yeah, that's definitely important.
Yeah, I love what you said about the critical thinking and creative thinking because a lot of people would consider that not necessarily creative, like trying to find new ways to manage a budget or building a pivot table or
Hmm.
any of those ways to try to apply is really problem solving, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
why we like create. That's why creativity makes us happy, and research shows that is because we're solving a problem. So basically, any problem solving is using our creativity, I think. So
yeah. And then too, if you're in that space, because I was in that space as well, where I was also a financial educator. And so I was mentoring these high school students, and sometimes their attention span is so short when you're talking about boring topics like savings and budgeting and all that stuff. So you got to come up with creative ways so that they can get involved and really get the message across to them, that they can learn in such a way that it's going to stick there. So I think that comes in, your creativity comes in too when you're doing stuff like that.
yeah, you and me both. I remember I had a job where I was in charge of technical training for some medical products, and like I was bored giving the presentation, let alone the poor people listening to it. So I hear what you're saying, like trying to make it interesting. I don't know about you. This is a bit of a tangent, but that's what we do here on Creative Lifescaping. In the academic world, I find that like if I'm giving a lecture to a mixture of students and faculty and you know employees, staff, I find that a lot of times there's this like, you have to make it boring to make it sound credible. Like, even though I would make it light and fun, I would still have all the same references of peer reviewed research in my presentation. But there's always the like, this is too interesting. It must not be good. You know, like, what do you think about that, Molly?
Um, I've never really had that experience. I don't think if it's too interesting, it must not be good. If it's interesting, then your audience is going to perk up and they're going to listen, and you're
Yeah.
going to have their undivided attention. So you want to make it interesting. I remember in high school being in classes and just sitting there and falling asleep because the professor or the teacher was so boring that you're not even hearing what's going on, and then next day, you at the end of the class, you hear him say, okay, test tomorrow, and you're like, what, test tomorrow? I didn't I didn't even hear what you said just now.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for things to be interesting so you can capture that audience, and then they can really learn something from what you're saying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true. I think, I did some speaker training, and one of the things that was an epiphany for me in hindsight was the direction on changing your pitch and your tone to match the seriousness. So I think maybe that's what I was doing wrong, is that I gave everything in like an upbeat, kind of more playful way because I do stand up comedy. I like things to be funny. But what I've been trying to do now moving forward is when I'm talking about research and more peer reviewed kind of serious stuff, just changing my tone a little bit and just my speed. And so maybe it was more in the delivery from my perspective, because I agree with you. Like, what when it doesn't feel like you're learning something because it's interesting, you're going to retain that information so much more.
Yeah. And I think it has to do with your audience as well. You have to know the audience that you're talking to and tailor your presentation and your tone according to that audience. If you're talking to a group of execs and professionals, then you probably will be a bit more serious than if you're talking to teenagers or young professionals. So it depends on the audience as well.
That's true. Although I make it my personal mission to make those execs and senior people a bit more relaxed anyway.
Yeah, sometimes they're too stuffy, right?
Yes, exactly. They take themselves too seriously. Okay, I'm just going to put up your website here. So I'd like to know a little bit more about the factors that developed your current passion for helping people with their careers and for networking, and how that kind of evolved from like a job in finance and accounting.
Yeah. So I've always been a helper of people. And from coming out of college, I had no idea about networking. And so I happened to join this organization called the National Black MBA. And it's a professional organization that's been around for about more than 50 years that cater to professionals with MBAs and stuff like that. But when I started as a mentor and I started helping to mentor high school students. And so I'm usually typically a shy person. Some people would probably say I was an introvert. And so being a part of that and being able to put my knowledge out there and my experience out there, it kind of brought me out of that shell, brought me out of that inner self. And so from having that experience with that organization, I realized that networking was linked to so many things. I was going to career fairs, going to conferences, going to networking events, and seeing that that skill was lacking in a lot of people. And I would hear it from a lot of employers that would look for candidates and say, this candidate doesn't know how to speak, doesn't know how to sell themselves, doesn't know how to articulate their value in what they can bring to the company. And so I started We Network Services just as a trial basis with two of my friends, Christy and Diana, that I was working in the mentorship program with. And I was like, let's do this. And so we started it as doing networking events. And I didn't want to just do networking events, but I wanted to do networking events with a difference, because I find that when I went to these networking events, everyone was so stuffy and so robotic. And you go to a networking event, this slap a tag on you with your name and the company you're with, and you go in and everybody's like, my name is such and such, I'm with this company such and such. And I find the conversation was so robotic, it was not interesting. And so I'm like, I'm going to change that. So my events were, I didn't want to know your name, I didn't want you to have a name tag. I created conversational tags. So when you enter the event, you would put a conversation tag on you. For example, I am not a morning or night person. And when that person comes up to you and they see that tag, it sparks a fun conversation. And so you organically start talking to that person instead of forcing it. And so it eliminates the awkwardness and the work in networking, so to speak. And that took off. That was really, a lot of people really liked that idea. And then since the pandemic and we weren't able to go out and network in person like we should, I started doing networking events and workshops virtually online, and also ventured into the coaching arena where I would coach young professionals and women on how to network better, network properly, and also how to recognize, realize, and articulate their value in such a way that they can get the job of their dreams, and they can get to advance and pivot in that career, and really pull out their fabulousness. So that's Me Network Services.
Wow. You know what's, I love that, because I think what I see is such incredible creativity and courage, with what you're seeing. You saw a problem, you wanted to solve it, but you didn't want to solve it the way everybody else did. So you tried something new and it
Yeah.
worked. It might not have worked that great, but you could have adapted and changed. So like, to me, like, do you consider that as a creative approach, what you did? Or like, would you say, yes, that was very creative, or would you use a different word to describe the business that you built?
I would say it was creative, definitely, because I didn't want it, especially the networking events. I didn't want it to be the same boring thing that people go into, because that's why a lot of people don't do it.
Mhm.
And that's why a lot of people think it's hard. And what's the sense in me doing it? And so I wanted to eliminate that altogether and say you can network and you can do it efficiently, effectively, strategically, and you can be intentional about your networking and really do it the right way and still have fun doing it. And so that was my purpose of creating, totally shifting from the name tags and doing the conversation tags, and really having people step out of themselves, step out of the box, and really put themselves out there to network with others.
And how did other people react? Because that's different, right? So what you did
Mhm.
was something they weren't expecting and it was different. And a lot of people really struggle with that. So did you get any pushback from the attendees and on that new format?
I think in the beginning they were like, "Oh, what is this?" But it was more curious than
Yeah.
pushback.
Yeah.
And I think once they saw what the conversation tags were, because we really made them fun. And once you put it on and you having a discussion about if you were the president, what would you do? And all of these kind of things, and you're talking to someone else about it, and you're getting into something that's casual that will eventually lead to, okay, I work here, this is what I do, and you pitch in your networking pitch or whatever. It's not straight off the bat someone in your face, okay, I am this, I'm that.
Yeah.
Because
What can you do for me kind of thing is,
exactly,
yeah.
because
Mhm.
that's what makes you insecure. I remember early in my years going to networking events and just feeling like I didn't belong there because I was seeing all these name tags with CEOs,
Mm.
presidents of such and such a company. And in my mind, I was like, well, my company is not out there like that. And
Yeah.
I don't feel like I can go in this group and add value because I'm not of that caliber. And so I really wanted to take that out of it, and let people know that regardless of if you're a janitor or an administrative assistant or a CEO or an executive, you can network and be just as professional, just as articulate as anyone else, and go in there and wow the crowd. So I wanted to put everyone on a level playing field.
Well, because we're all humans first, right? So for people who are either looking for a job maybe, or maybe someone's looking to start a business or an initiative like a networking group, what are the things that helped you push through? Like, I guess, did you get any resistance from other people that were helping you? What I guess what I'm asking is not very clear and articulate way is, how did you take that step? So whether it's creating a networking event that is an unusual format, whether it's applying for a job you don't think you're ready for, or whether it is reaching out and networking with someone who is a CEO who you think wouldn't want to talk to you, what's your process and what helped you kind of get through that resistance that I'm assuming you had, because most of us have resistance to creativity to do something new. So,
Yeah.
what would you say to people who are trying to do something new that maybe is a little bit different? How did you get through that kind of struggle?
So I would say first and foremost, be clear about what you want to do. And so you want to take that time to um, still your mind and think on things, and you want to make note of it. So it might just be an idea. I would say write it down, and then really start purposefully putting those ideas together and writing it out. And once you have that idea and you know what you want to do, I would say go for it. Take those steps to go for it. So you have to put that plan together. And to your question, you might be in business with other people, and you have to make sure that those people are on the same line as you, that they're in the same energy as you, that there's synergy there. Because if there isn't, then you're going to run into problems. I know in the beginning I started with two other ladies that were doing it with me, but we quickly realized that our work ethic and what we wanted in the future for the business did not align, and
Mm.
so had to make that difficult decision to part ways and
Mhm.
to wish them well in their journey and wish me well in my journey. So you have to be able to make those decisions, and you have to know what you want, and really go forward with that. And also surround yourself with people that is going to be that boost, that's going to be that champion, and it's going to be that person that's going to help you to really get to that goal and get to that place and that dream that you want. And so you might want to look at your network and see and seek out these people, mentors, sponsors, champions, those connectors and those sponsors. That's going to really push you and help you in what your goal is and what you want to achieve. I hope
Yeah, I
that
love that.
answered your
Being like,
question.
yeah, no, I feel like what I'm hearing is like be connected to what you want and try not to like listen too much to the noise and be confident in your path and get people that help you kind of build that confidence, but know when you have to part ways because it's just not a good fit. I think that's fantastic advice.
Yes. And I want to add too is to put aside self-doubt, because sometimes we are our worst critic, and we're doing something and we're like, but I've had those moments where I'm like, who's going to listen to me? Who's going to read this? I mean, am I adding value? Is this valuable to someone? Is someone going to pay for this? And
Mhm.
so that can deter you from your goal, and that can leave you in a place of stagnancy and being stuck when you doubt yourself, and that imposter syndrome is real. And I would say to really affirm yourself. And I tell my clients this exercise all the time: look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you are amazing and you are fabulous. I don't know if you've ever watched this movie. There's this movie called Cool Runnings.
Oh,
It's
yes,
it's a
yes.
Jamaican
I love that one.
movie
Isn't
with
it? Aren't they in Canada? The bobsled, they come to
the
Canada to be.
bobsled, the
Yeah,
bobsled.
yeah.
And I forgot the guy's name, but he was talking to the other guy who had the rich family, and he put him in the mirror and he asked him, "What's your name?" And he's like, "Junior." And he's like, "What's your name?" "Junior." And he's like, "You are a bad whatever, whatever." But he was really reaffirming him and telling him that you are good, you are great, and you need to see it yourself. And looking at yourself in the mirror and saying these things is very important, because it helps you to build your self esteem and build you up so that you can go out there and build up others.
Yeah, I recently, Mel Robbins, I hadn't read the book yet, but she just released a book called The High Five Habit, which sounds like that, where she tells you should high five yourself in the mirror every morning. So same type of affirmation. And what you're talking about sounds a bit like the inner critic. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Is the
Yeah,
person?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I call mine Todd. I have a name for mine. I don't know why Todd. No offense to anybody I know who's named Todd. It's just kind of an amalgamation. And I imagine Todd is like kind of a football beef eater kind of type that's like, but really scared of everything. And I'm just like, oh Todd, it'll be fine. You can go have a lollipop and I'll go and do this and we'll be good. He's like my bodyguard.
Yeah, yeah.
So when we're talking, so people who might be watching and wonder if they're looking for a new job or they're wanting to network more effectively, do you have some ideas or even some creative ways to, let's say you're trying to connect with someone who's on a different kind of level as you, like maybe you're a manager and you're trying to connect with CEOs and build your
Hmm.
network of supporters and advocates and mentors. Maybe can you give us a few ways that you find are the most effective or creative ways that work really well?
Yeah, so I would say be active on social media, especially on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is where you find a lot of those employers and those CEOs that you're talking about. And if out of the blue you just message someone on LinkedIn and you're not even active, they're going to know this because they're going to see your profile, see how active you've been. So I would say, first of all, be active, be purposeful in what you want to do. So you're going to lay out that networking plan. I really want to start networking. So this is what I'm going to do. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, I'm going to start building my LinkedIn profile. Then when you have that profile, then you start connecting with people that you might think will be valuable to your network, or people that influence you in some sort of way, shape, or form. And then you start really commenting on maybe posts that resonate with you, and you start posting yourself, getting creative, maybe posting videos or posting articles or writing stuff that you are passionate about, that people can see and that people can really relate to. once you've built this up and you see that there's people that you want to connect with or you want to network with, then that's where you have to craft that networking pitch and you send out your message to connect and say, I really want to connect. I see that you're such and such and such, and I really love what you're doing, and I would love to connect with you. And so that is where you do that initial stage of connecting. A lot of people, the mistake that they make is that you connect with people, but you connect using a sales pitch. That's going
Yes,
to
you hear that?
that's
Yeah, you hear that? Ron Tite talks about a pitch slap. Have you heard this? A
Yeah,
pitch.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's going to be a total turn off for me. If you connected with me for the first time and then you're slapping me with a sales pitch, then I'm just gonna look at it and I'm gonna put it over there to the side because I'm gonna be like, I don't think that you've even looked at my profile. Have you ever had this one where they send you, I see that you're in, I see that you're in tech and I have this blah blah, blah. And you're like, wait a minute, did I put on my profile that I'm in tech for the next last time I checked, I was in finance. How are you sending me something about tech? So that tells you that it's some sort of automation or they just put it in there to see how many people they can get. And they didn't even look at your profile. They didn't even look at what you were doing or whatever. And that is gonna deter people from even connecting or networking with you. So I would say those are the tips I would give to people that are job searching and looking for job search. I would say reach out and ask for informational interviews. Don't reach out and say, okay, I see you and I want a job. That's not gonna cut it. You can reach out and say, I have researched your company. I really love your company. I see that you're working in this position. How long have you been working there? I would really just love to pick your brain about the company and about what you do and stuff like that. People love to talk about themselves. They're going to talk about the company. So you ask for a 15-minute informational interview, and then there that gives you inside information into the company and probably into a position that you might want to pursue in the future or in the now. So
Mhm.
those are the tips that I would give.
Yeah, I think those are fantastic tips. Definitely not the what can you do for me approach, and instead the what can I do for you, or at least like I'm genuinely engaged with you and interested in you versus
Exactly.
like where's the stuff, like what can you give me kind of thing. What One of the things I struggle with, I don't know if other people have this issue, is sometimes I'll see somebody who I think is super interesting or I want to connect, and I connect with them and I write a personalized message like you said, like, hi, I noticed that you are in finance and that you built a networking company. And then sometimes they accept the no, they accept the connection, but then they don't answer. And so sometimes I'll follow up with a thanks for connecting, looking forward to getting to know you. So would you have any suggestions in that? So someone does reach out and they have a personal connection and they say, I'd love to speak to you for 15 minutes, and then silence. How do you approach that?
Um, some of those could be, sometimes I would say those are the lazy networkers. But that person might genuinely be busy and they might not have time. So I would say after you say thank you for the connect, just leave it there. Maybe in your life or in your professional career, you'll be able to go back around and talk to that person again, but don't push it because then it becomes an annoyance and it
Right.
becomes it becomes too pushy. So if you find that someone's not responding, then you move on to the next person.
Mhm.
Maybe in this present time and in that time, you're not supposed to be connected or that person is not supposed to be in your network. You're always going to find those instances where not everyone you reach out to or not everyone you talk to is meant to be a part of your network or meant to be in your space. So you have to build up that frame of mind or that mindset that it no matter what happens, I'm gonna be okay with it and I'm gonna just move on.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And that's in sales too. Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket and think if this one person doesn't answer you, your life is over, or that career path or job is over. I mean, there's creative ways. Like, I guess if you really had one individual you wanted to connect with, you could, if they don't answer you, I guess you could go and comment on their posts or like network with other people in the
Yeah, yeah.
company.
That's creativity too. There's other creative ways you can do it. What about the person that's closest to them,
Mhm.
or maybe you don't just connect with the person right away. Build that relationship on the back end, like you
Mhm.
said. Connect with their post, comment on their post, and do stuff that you think that might attract their attention. And
Mhm.
eventually, they might be the ones to reach out to you instead of you reaching out to them. So it's all that the what we're talking about creativity now. It's all about being that creative self. Even when you talk about job search and going into a job, a company is looking for a candidate that's going to stand out. What's going to set you apart from the other candidates that's coming up for those same same jobs? You got to be creative. You got to be stand out in such a way that that interviewer, that person is going to remember you and say, yes, I remember Caroline. She's the one who talked about such and such and such. She's the one that had that amazing smile. You got to be creative. Yeah.
Do you have examples of whether it's networking or in a career search, people you've worked with or you've done yourself? So I guess where like you want to stand out, but it's instinctive for us not to stand out because we don't want to look different. But there is probably a point at which it becomes farcical or ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
What are some, do you have an example of someone who did something slightly different or someone that was bold in their interview or networking that paid off?
So there's little things that makes you stand out, right? I remember networking with just recently I went to a networking event. I met a lady from London and the English consulate, I think she was, and we bonded over me being from the Caribbean and being under the British regime. And we talked about that and talked about my brother who was in the British Army and stuff like that. So there might be opportunities where you can bond over things like that. An interview is, I would say, a lot of times before, I think it's becoming better now, but before, people looked at interview as something sort of a robotic, right? The employer is asking the questions and I'm answering the questions.
Mhm.
And then we wait to the end and then I ask two or three questions and then the interview is over. I want our job candidates to look at an as at an interview as a conversation. So you're
Mhm.
going into that interview as a conversation. Know that as much as that interviewer is interviewing you, you're interviewing them as well.
Mhm.
So make it be a conversation where you're asking questions. And I think based on your questions, that can be a way that you can stand out as well.
Mhm.
Based
Mhm.
on the way that you research the company and things you looked at the company, that can be a way you can stand out as well. You might ask questions about the company atmosphere, the culture, all of that stuff, the things that they do, whether they have company dinners or whatever. That can be the way you can stand out as well. And then based on the interviewer and the way how you see they're carrying the conversation, that will tell you if you can put something in there that can really make you stand out or not. So it all has to do with discernment. It all has to do with the
Mhm.
conversation, and it all has to do with you being confident in what you want to bring to the table of that company and what you want to achieve. Maybe you were the only person that wore a blue suit and it was really nice and it fit right on you and that made you stand out. So there are
Mhm.
so many different things that can make you stand out from another candidate.
Yeah, so you don't have to show up in a clown suit or make a dance.
No, you don't. You don't have to be all out. And in terms of standing out, make sure that you're being your authentic self as well, because people can spot. Can I say that bull a mile away? So
Mhm.
make sure you're being your authentic self.
Yeah, so it sounds like what I'm hearing you say is you don't need any gimmicks. You don't need anything like, bring a dove in a box and release it in the interview or something. But what I'm hearing from you is one of the foundations of creativity is curiosity. So in that conversation with that woman from London, if you hadn't asked questions or been curious, you would never have found that common point of connection. And that's what it sounds like you're saying. Like, don't go into the interview as like, okay, it's my turn to barf out my stuff, and now it's your turn to barf out your stuff. Try to make it more of a a genuine, authentic interaction and being curious about not only the company, but the individuals in the room. Because
Exactly.
what will set you apart is your connection with those people and your ability, which is also creative, to synthesize different ideas. So maybe you've read that the company just released a new product, and
Hmm.
then you ask them some questions, and the interviewer said something about having a child in daycare, and you'd be like, oh, that's interesting because your company just released a product for day caregivers, and how does that connect? And that
Exactly.
connection is what is that critical thinking, that creative thinking, problem solving that people are looking for. So it sounds like, I mean, all of this stuff that wraps up together is like curiosity, being present, being interested,
Hmm.
instead of trying to be interesting, and then also making these networks in your brain and articulating the possibilities you see from the conversation. Like, is that kind of summarizing it a little bit? Am I getting that?
Yes, yes. And you only have a problem standing out if you're going to a job, but if you're approaching it, I'm in this interview and just because I want a job.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna come across different than if you genuinely like the company and you really want that job. So there's gonna be two different energies there. Another way you stand out as well is at one time I saw this candidate that instead of after the interview them writing a thank you email, they walked with a thank you card right there for the employer. So
Yeah.
that those are other little things, little ways that you stand out as well, because no one writes thank you cards anymore like
Mm-hmm.
that. And so that's something that is right there. They have it in their hand. It's right on their desk. And so that's another way that person used to stand out as well.
Yeah, I love that because, well, I have ADHD and I also worry. Like, so if I'm interviewing somebody or I'm connecting with someone and I want to send them a thank you card, sometimes I feel like they're going to think I'm weird if I ask for their address. I mean, if it's a company, it's easy, but I just love the simplicity of like thinking ahead of time. So planning ahead a little bit and
Hmm.
thinking, how could I set myself apart without looking like, you
Hmm.
know, like a distracted and and organized, but bringing a thank you card and writing it out there is brilliant, because to me that just shows your character, shows that you take action, that you're thoughtful, that you plan. Like in that one little action, it says so much about you, which I think
Yeah.
is what I love about your networking prompts, which is more about like, who are you versus what are you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Big difference.
Awesome, I love that. Are you seeing a lot of people changing careers right now? Like, what would you say to employers who are watching that might be worried about all their employees leaving?
I would say to employers, do better.
Simple.
Do better. Yeah, simple as that. Do better. For a long time, you've been taking advantage of your employees, and I think companies have become comfortable. They've had good employees who have come to work, have done their job, and have not really complained much. And they're like, they're just gonna be here for us forever. And so there's no incentives. There's nothing. There's no upward mobility, there's no growth. And so I think employees are realizing now, even since the pandemic, people have had time to be at home and to think and to revisit their childhood goals and dreams. And they've been like, but I think I can do this now. I can work from home part time, and I can do my own thing and fulfill my dreams. And I think that is what happening. That's what happening. It's not that people don't want to work. I think people are tapping into their potential now and tapping into what they can do, and they're realizing those goals. And so I think companies now have to realize that you need to give incentives, you need to give better packages, and you need to really appreciate your employees better. And there's flexibility is needed, because now we are seeing that employees don't have to be 100% in the office to get the job done. And to tell you the truth, some employers, they are such in that old school mentality that they want you to be in the job 24/7 so that they can hover over you and look at what you're doing. And so employees are saying, I don't want that anymore. I want to be able to take care of my family, do my job, and still have time to go outside and smell the roses. And I think that is what's happening.
Yeah. I think the visual that comes to my mind, I'm a very visual person. When you're talking about this, I have this image of like some people just with their heads down in cubicle land, and then someone just coming and slapping them in the face, and they're like, "Oh, what? What am I doing here?" Right?
Exactly,
That's the
exactly,
pandemic. It's a big slap in the face.
exactly. And
Awesome. Yeah.
I think it's awesome that people are tapping in, because then you have people that has been in jobs for 10, 20, 30 years doing the same thing over and over, and not using their creativity, not going back to those goals that they wrote down as a child or after college, those ambitions that they had, and then they find themselves in a job because of circumstances. Maybe you had to pay back a student loan, maybe you had to bills that you had to pay right away, and you didn't have help, you didn't have a scholarship, and so they had to go into that job, and then they get into the job, and then you become comfortable, but you become lackadaisical, and so now you're like you said, waking up and saying, what have I been doing for 20, 30
Yeah.
years? And I don't have much to show for it. I need to get up out of this dream.
Mhm.
You remember that movie with the guy in the sunken place? She's spinning the teacup. I forgot the name of it, and he's sinking deeper, deeper into the sunken place. I think a lot of us have been in that sunken place, and then we just the pandemic was the thing that woke us up and be
Yeah.
like, you are better than this, you are more than this, and you can do this. People are opening businesses, people are
Mhm.
pivoting into different careers, people are learning that they can take care of their families and work at the same time. People are not standing for these little petty wages anymore.
Mhm.
They're looking for higher salaries. They're realizing their worth and their value, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it's like the constraints of the pandemic have amplified creativity, because giving constraints can also be very catalytic to creativity, because you're forced to think of a new way to do something within a certain way. And I agree with you 100%, Molly, this complacency of comfort. I mean, you look at kids in kindergarten, and in a study, 98% of them scored as creative geniuses, right? They're creative because they're clueless. They're completely clueless, Molly. So everything they do is new. Failure is not even a thing for them. Like
Exactly.
I can remember the first time I got judged for something, and it was like grade 2, and I was like, "Oh, whoa," like my creativity, but they're completely clueless. But when we get accomplished and we get comfortable and we get used to being competent, it hurts and it's painful to try something new.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a company that's looking at not making people work in the office, whether it's a networking group using different approaches, or whether it's a job seeker trying to write a thank you card. Like, these are all tiny examples of creativity that we can use every day to make our lives better, essentially. So this has been fantastic, Molly, and I'm not going to let you go. I'm not going to forget. So thank you. This has been such an interesting conversation. I know it's been super helpful for anybody who's considering a move, considering something new, or just trying to network with people more. You've given some great tips. I've got your contact. You've got a link tree here for all your socials. If you're
Yes.
watching this on LinkedIn, Molly's tagged here as a speaker, so you can click on her profile there and send her a personalized note. Don't send her a note saying, "I see that you're in tech." I get you're a coach. I see that you're a coach. I'm like, I'm not a coach. And I answer them and they don't answer me back. I'm like, so you pitch me with some generic thing and then I answer, you don't even answer. Like, anyway, but we are at the truth or dare section of the interview, and you chose truth. So I would
Oh,
love if you'd love to share a story that was a little embarrassing or something that kind of made you cringe, just to show that we can all make mistakes and we are all human.
okay. I have so many embarrassing stories.
I love it.
So many crazy, embarrassing stories. The one that comes to mind is I was doing a graduation for the kids I was mentoring, giving out certifications and all of that stuff, and I wanted to give the president a certification. So I made up this nice certificate and I'm presenting it, and I'm like, the presentation goes to, let's say for instance his name is Anthony Beck, and I'm like, the presentation goes to Anthony Jones, and everyone is like, who who's Anthony, who is Anthony Jones? And the certificate is big and bold up there, say Anthony Jones. And the person, that's not even the person's name. And everybody in line started laughing. I was so embarrassed because I took so much time to print those certificates and put them together right. And I'm like, I cannot believe I got his name wrong. So
But it
that was
happens, right? I mean, it's a mistake, and it sounds like they took it well. They were laughing,
yeah,
so
yeah. So that was it was embarrassing for me, but everybody took it as a joke in the end. So
that's good. Well, and then that's how we learn, right? If we never make mistakes, we're probably not doing anything important.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
So if so, so one of the other things I was going to ask you, I forgot, is what do you do for people? Like if someone's watching this is like, Molly has got it going on. She knows exactly what I need. Are you coaching people individually and doing the networking groups, or what
Yes,
services?
I host virtual networking events every month. I actually have one coming up for this month that I'm going to be posting, and building a network of women that's gonna really help each other and build each other up, and that's what I'm all about. It's just building, and so my one-on-one coaching, while it encompasses interviewing skills and getting you to the right level, whether you're looking for a job search or wanting to pivot in your career or whatever, my goal is to help you recognize, realize, and articulate your value. So
Mm,
recognizing who you are, realizing your potential, pulling out that fabulousness, and helping you get to those goals and those dreams that you set out to achieve, putting aside that imposter syndrome, that self-doubt, and really putting you on a path to success. So that's my goal to for my clients, whether it be young professionals or women. And so I'm so passionate about doing that, and it's my happy place.
well, and we are grateful for you doing that because we definitely, especially young professional women, need that. Can we find out more about your networking events on the website, wenetworkservices.com? Where's the best place?
Yes, the use the the link tree link, and once you go there, you'll see all my events. You'll have all my socials, and anything that's coming up. That link will just take you directly to it.
Great. What I'll do is I'll put those links in the event somehow. I'll make it happen so people can click to there. Thank you so much, Molly. This has been such a fascinating conversation and helpful for me as well, because sometimes I get a bit stuck on next steps, and I sometimes go the other way. I feel like I have to do like the dove in a box thing, and I think I need to find, like you said, those little moments of connection and the little things that can set you apart. And that's going to be my goal for the next month. So
Yes, this was awesome. Thank you so much. I didn't realize we were out of time already.
I know it's so fast, right? Well, I always go over because I'm like, it's my show, so I can do what I want. But hopefully that's okay because I just love these. Maybe I should make them longer, but I don't know. I love these conversations, and you've brought so much value and to help women and professionals, like you said, position them better, especially people who maybe haven't felt comfortable blowing their own horn or promoting themselves in the way that gets them viewed because of the way that we've been raised or
Yeah.
conditioned. So I think that your service is an incredibly useful service, and I'm going to definitely check out the networking events. And so thankful for you today, Molly.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Check out Molly's profile, and maybe I'll see you at one of her networking events. Bye, everyone.
Yes. Bye.